From performanceriders.com, this is the Parbery Podcast. I'm Nat Foxon, and each episode I challenge World Equestrian Games top 10 dressage rider Brett Parbery to explain and discuss what I call a Parberyism. That's a pearl of wisdom I've written down over the years of working together in our Performance Riders programs. Brett doesn't know what today's Parberyism is. Let's get into it. Okay, Brett Parbery, are you ready for your Parberyism today?
Yeah, let me have it.
All right. The Parberyism is you don't get judged on feel.
Yeah, like that one. It's good.
I love when you like your own Parberyisms.
Well, they're often things that I've people have said to me, or I've heard said, and I grabbed it and used it and developed it, and so yeah, I do like that one.
So you listen back to them sometimes. You're like, oh yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, I just like it because it's a great look. It probably also reflects a time in my life where a big epiphany hit me. So it was like, I remember when I got my head around that and how true it was and how much it changed my outlook on the whole sport. So I love it.
So is there a moment in your dressage journey that you think that you did have this sort of light bulb moment about, the fact that you don't get judged on feel? And of course, what we're talking about here is that in terms of competitive dressage, we're riding to present a look to the judges which may not feel the best to us as a rider.
Yeah, that's right. Look, yeah, I mean, ultimately it would be perfect if it looked great and felt great, and sometimes it does, and that is when you go, that's that little moment when we really, really get the adrenaline buzz from the sport. It looked great, it felt great, and that's what we're aiming for. That is what we're aiming for because it feels good for us. It usually feels good for the horse, and that's the ultimate goal. But what I learned was sometimes when I rode a test and it felt great and I would come out and get a score that I was like, thought it was better than that those two things didn't marry up, that sometimes when it felt great to me, it didn't look as good to the judges. And so what the mindset that it gave me there was, how do I ride a test, have it look, or how do I train? How do I train and compete and be able to ride the look of the sport and not get distracted by the feel of what I'm feeling? So that's more around it shouldn't feel awful. Because if, like I said, if it feels awful for you, it will feel awful for the horse, and that's not good either. But it doesn't need to feel. And probably the biggest distraction there is the word light. We often hear the word light used in dressage, which when lightness is applied the right way is a great thing. But unfortunately, I think it's misconstrued and misunderstood, which that's a whole nother podcast. But often when we get distracted by the feeling of light or the wrong light, we can ride a look that becomes a disconnected, almost a bit underpowered look for the judges, and the judges are completely judging what they see, not what they feel.
And what look, let's break it down. What look are you trying to get to present to the judges on the day, and sometimes what doesn't marry with that great feel?
Well, ultimately, harmony is what we're aiming for, right? That's, and I'm so glad that the sport is completely, the light is being shone on the subject of harmony right now. Like this, there's no more have I heard this spoken about than now, even though it has been the underlying philosophy of nearly most of the top dressage riders for all of our careers, is the concept of harmony, that when this is done right, it should look easy. It should look easy because we look like we're harmoniously connected to our horse, and that we're appearing like we're doing nothing. And like we always say, that's because we're ultimately trying to do nothing. We're trying to use small aids and and have the horses respond off little light aids. So, but the harmony is the most important thing, but also what is written on the test sheet, the definition of a collected trot. What is a collected trot? Well, the collected trot has energy, it has suspension, it has an uphill way of going, and it has where it appears that the horse is taking more weight on the hind leg. So the hind leg is stepping further under the horse, and the horse's shoulders are up, and the horse is more balanced back, and probably overall the horse looks shorter. And then how you make a transition from collected trot to extended trot and then back again. Now, that's what the judges are judging, right? The definitions and their understanding of what these paces and movements should look like and be. And sometimes from a riding perspective, that doesn't feel always great. It doesn't feel, and I think we can all say we've watched tests, we've watched really good dressage tests that if you were to ask the rider goes, oh, it didn't feel great, but, it looked good. So the look of dressage can often not marry up with the feel of dressage. And sometimes on the other side, you can be doing things like collected work with horses and it feels amazing and the horse looks disconnected and not quite there, but it feels, light and sort of on its own and going by itself. And it looks dreadful. So, that's where I think as we develop as riders, it's almost like developing a sophisticated understanding of how does it feel and how does it look, and trying to marry those things up together all the time.
I think another example of this is when you can be riding along and it feels wonderful because it's all quite sort of calm, under control. There's no tension. It's rhythmical. But then you might look on a video, for example, and think, oh, God, I look like I'm going at snail's pace.
Yeah, that's right. And
so, so I guess as the first step, even before we get to the competition, it's going to have to be about, like you're saying, training our feel to match up with the right look. And I guess that's going to be really about videoing and eyes on the ground.
That's it. And I mean, I'm sure, again, a lot of the listeners will be able to say, I've had lessons. I've had lessons where it didn't feel great, but the instructor kept saying good.
Yeah.
And this is another thing that I want, a lot of our listeners to think about is when you're, the idea of having a coach or having someone help you be eyes on the ground. I find that riders aren't spending enough time making this decision wisely. So it's like, oh, Brett Parbery's in town. Oh, I might get a lesson. Well, that's just the most ridiculous thing you can ever think of. Because, yes, of course, I'll go in and try to give you all my time and as much wisdom as I can in 45 minutes. But really, like, what the riders should say is, who do I really admire? Who do I really like everything they do with their horses? And then I want to now invest in this person and I want to stick with them. And when they're telling me it looks good, I trust their opinion on this.
Yeah.
And it might not feel great, but the coach is telling me it looks better. Maybe it's me that needs to change. and rather than go, oh, he said it looked good, but it didn't feel good, I'm not going back. Which, how many times do you hear that?
Yeah. So
the look and the feel doesn't always match up. I wished it did because it would be easier then. But yeah, I think I've just gone on a slight tangent there, but that's probably the thing is the judges and the coaches and everyone's trying to help the riders get the best look for what they're wanting to do in the sport of dressage.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we have to understand too, there's a big difference between the sport of dressage and the lifestyle of dressage. And the sport of dressage is a sport like any other sport. It winning or doing well or performing at a high level doesn't always feel amazing. It can feel scrappy. It can feel hard work. You have to pick up pieces on the way through and make decisions very quickly. It can feel very unsettling. But and all of that happens, and this is the beautiful part about dressage, all of that happens with this beautiful, elegant picture of someone just cruising through a dressage test looking like they're doing nothing. But the reality is that sometimes when you do a good job, you are saving things all the time. You're saving mistakes from happening. You're saving horses from spooking or whatever, making a mistake. So is that making sense?
It's good. I mean, we're always happy to go on a Parbery tangent. We're always happy for the tangent. Just a quick message from us. If any of the ideas discussed today resonate with you and you'd love to dive deeper, head over to performanceriders.com. There's a bunch of free content for you, and there's loads of opportunities as well to work with us by enrolling in one of our training or mentoring programs. performanceriders.com. Can you think of an example from your own writing, or maybe more in general terms? I mean, you've ridden in literally the biggest arenas and shows in the world, World Equestrian Games, all the biggest shows. And there would have to be moments in those sorts of competitions and tests where, given the situation and the atmosphere and everything, that some parts of the test actually don't feel that good. Is that right? I mean, can you think of a time where you're like, well, actually it ended up, I ended up doing quite well, I ended up scoring well, but in the moment, to be honest, didn't feel that great.
Yeah. I've got a great example. I mean, this is probably where, when I reflected on this example, is probably where this concept really came out of. I was at Aachen, and I ended up, I don't know, sixth at Aachen or something, and in the big class there, and on Victory Salute. So we're going back a while now. We're 14 years ago, and Victory Salute, when he was at his best, he would look amazing, really powerful, big, up going, and would be a little strong. Like I could. There was moments when I was strong. I think looking back now, I probably could have ridden him way better than I did. But the horse would feel quite strong, but would look amazing. And especially through all the Piaffe Passage tour and that trot tour that he had. And I remember going up to see the Australian little group of Australians that were in the grandstands, which was including his owner, actually, Carolyn Lieutenant. And Carolyn had a few friends there. And one lady, a very experienced lady, she said to me, oh, that was beautiful. I love watching that. She said, it looks so light. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting, because it feels anything but light.
Right.
I thought, wow, okay, well, she knows what she's talking about. It must have looked way better than it felt. And of course, the judges rewarded it too. Like he ended up getting a high place there. So that really resonated with me to say, just keep trusting the eyes on the ground, keep trusting the coach. The coach is telling me what I need to do. I need to find ways within this contact and within this way of doing these movements to find a feel. But, I'm getting great information from the ground, and I need to adjust my feelings to suit this, and then make it as best I can for my horse so that he wants to keep doing it for me, that he wants to. So, yeah.
I think also, thinking about that world stage, I mean, I can think of a number of very, very top riders who, we all highly respect and admire. Isabel is probably the most obvious example here, that sometimes watching her in a test, especially in some of those extended trots, you think, actually, she doesn't look that comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, amazing. Like what an amazing rider.
Amazing.
I think, to be honest, like she is the master of producing a look and disregarding a feel.
Right.
Because she knows exactly what will score the points. And, she also knows exactly how to bring out the best in a certain movement for that particular horse. So, looking at the test like it's just a mathematical equation, how do I get as many scores above 7 into all of the boxes on the test? And so, some of Isabel, I mean, there's never been a perfect horse born yet. Every horse has a weakness of some description somewhere in their Grand Prix tour. And this is the beautiful part of Grand Prix is it's made to expose the weaknesses in your horse in training or in the horses, just the way the horse is naturally made up. So, Isabel, for example, I'll just use Isabel all the top riders are the same, but I'll use Isabel because she's been around the longest and has had the most horses. You'll see horses that she rides and wins world championships and amazing things. And they might, for example, not be able to extended trot, but she does the perfect amount of extended trot for that particular horse to score the best points on the day. Mm-hmm. And that's a real talent. And I think that's something that riders shouldn't overlook. Like, okay, don't criticize Isabel's extended trot. Actually give her credit for doing something that horse is probably not the best at and getting the marks for it. Like, and giving the judges no reason to take the marks away. Like, that there's an enormous amount of sophisticated experience and feel and understanding of the sport to be able to do that.
Yeah, I love that reframing a little bit because you're so right. We can look at horses and riders and, it's a little bit, I guess, the nature of how the sport is judged. We're sort of working backwards and always being negative and sort of penalizing, but we could look the other way, like look at what they've actually achieved with this horse. Like, look what the training has achieved. I like that.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. And I think you'll find that most of the top riders in the world are the same. It's like, oh man, that's really clever. What she's doing there is so clever. And we learn from that. And of course we, sit in the grandstands, you go, oh, that's extended trot. Why did that get a 7? Oh, that's not a 7, blah, blah, blah. And that's, of course, it is a sport of where you start from the top and work backwards. And so, but the people trying to do the job in the test and ride their horses and compete are going, that's super clever. I'm going to take that. And, because the other hand, right, is the horse doesn't do a very good extended trot. So we ride it and ride it and ride it and ride it. And we try and develop it, and we get one great movement and then we ruin 2 other movements to get it.
Right.
So, and then you put the horse through all this unnecessary duress and stress and strain in order to get a mark for one movement and then possibly then forget the most important part of the test, which is the collection and all of the collected movements that carry the coefficients and all the rest. So understanding the dressage test and understanding where the coefficients are, where the most amount of marks are, will then tell you where you need to put your focus and where you need to adjust your training system and where you need to then cover up a few of the other things that aren't necessarily the best, for the best movement for the horse.
Yeah. Okay, to finish us up on our Parberyism conversation today, the Parberyism was you don't get judged on feel. In your coaching and, online when you're helping your riders in your performance riders programs, what are you seeing most typically from riders where they're prioritizing feel over the look? Are there certain areas that you can pinpoint with that? You mentioned lightness, perhaps that being one. Is there another one that you're seeing? Is it perhaps an energy or a lack of a positive tension? What are you seeing?
Usually, look, I think usually it comes with the 3 main pillars of what we discuss in our program. The posture of the horse. So a rider riding the horse to see the pole never goes low, like that they think, oh, the pole of the horse, the pole of my horse must always be up, blah, 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 and forget completely about like the whole picture of the posture of the horse. So they're feeling that the horse is up and light, let's say. So up and light, and then the horse is completely upside down and back down and all the rest. But their focus is on, I must feel like my horse is always up here, up and light, up and light.
That's a great point.
Riding the horse upside down.
That's such a great point. I just want to sort of put a pin in that one, because it's the feel is taking over, in that we're thinking uphill means always up in the pole, always up in the hand, whereas we've forgotten about the overall look of the whole posture of the whole horse.
Yeah, and that's where I think I want to mention the word awareness. For a rider to work on like understanding the complete look of the horse, they need to develop their awareness of the horse that's underneath them. The look from side on, the feel from underneath, the feel from the back end, the feel from everywhere in the horse, not just this little window that sits in front of your eyeballs. So feel the horse behind you, feel the horse underneath you, feel the posture of the whole horse, how much energy the horse is giving you without running, because that's another one. A rider who's riding for the feeling of going forward rather than the understanding of balance. Like the understanding of my horse must be energetic but balanced. And they think, I've just got to go forward. I've got to go forward. I've got to go forward. I've got to go forward. Feel. It's not forward enough. And you get to a point where the horse just can't keep up. The horse is just running around trying to keep up. So actually, in that moment, understanding my horse must be balanced and energetic, feel like it's working and look like it's in a working trot. And that's all I need to do. And then I have to balance the horse. So it's a very closely related thing, like the look and the feel. And it comes down to, of course, lightness is probably the biggest one, because as soon as the sport or an instructor mentions lightness to a rider, they instantly think about their hands. And it's not about your hands. It's a lightness. You're looking for a lightness through the whole horse, from energy, from balance, from a posture perspective. The horse is using its body, and that's the lightness you're searching, not just lightness in your fingers and in your hands. That's not it at all. So those things, I think, and riders potentially not allowing themselves to develop awareness. That's where I'd like to focus everybody in this conversation is you'll ride a look when you can be super aware of what everything underneath you is doing, what it looks like from the side, what it looks like from the front, what the movements, what the lines look like when you ride them, everything. And then if you can if you can work on your awareness and work on being able to ride the look, you'll find that the judges will reward you for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brett, for a fantastic conversation today.
Pleasure. Thank you.